So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome. Made it to episode 5 of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. So grateful to be here. If you're picking up on a theme, really trying to introduce some gratitude into my own life, and just so happy to be here today. Have some fun, interesting topics that probably not everybody can agree with. Shocker, as we dig into some topics of kind of the topic I like to start the show out by talking by, and then get to some questions that have been emailed in to us. So a couple housekeeping things. As always, like to pay a few bills, and thanks to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is ShareTech. Again, if you're watching or listening to this podcast, you very well may have been impacted by drug and alcohol addiction. ShareTech has an at-home diagnostic tool that is second to none. It detects over 100 plus substances as a drug and alcohol screen. I can't stress the importance of using the right test so that you do not allow use to go undetected. Go to betterdrugtest.com and pick up a test from ShareTech. Going to help you, it's going to help your loved one, and have that peace of mind as well. And then another local company here, Easy Sheets. Go to easysheets.club, especially if you're a short-term rental host, a property manager. This is a great service where we professionally clean and press and ship those sheets directly to your home so you can have faster turnovers. You can increase your reviews and ratings because people are going to be sleeping on sheets that they like and not those sandpaper things that so many rentals. And last but not least, still hopefully getting a box from Stitch Fix. This shirt, Stitch Fix, came from it. Go ahead, sign up to be a sponsor. We'd love to continue to support you as well, too. So, okay, paid some bills, got that out of the way. First and foremost, there's kind of a trending topic right now in behavioral health that kind of hit the news wire in the last 24, 48 hours. This isn't the topic I'm going to talk about today, but it's ticked me off enough that I had to at least come out swinging and say a few words about it. It's the overdose reversal medication. It's called Narcan, right? So if you take too many opioids, fentanyl, whatever it is, and you overdose and you're dying and you're flatlining, this is one of the drugs that can reverse those effects and bring you back to life. So, important drug. Glad it exists in the world, but I can't tell you how many people in the behavioral health, mental health world, treatment centers, outpatient programs are just celebrating this massive win that, yes, we can get this over the counter now. Like, yay, go us as a country. Woohoo. I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm glad that this drug exists. I don't want people dying, but we're treating a symptom, right? Not a root cause here. We're celebrating because of the fact that our country is so damn screwed up right now, and we're taking and having so many overdoses from opioids that it required the federal government to now allow the over-the-counter sale of Narcan so that we can reverse this. So, yes, I see the value in it. I get it. 100%. Check. Clear. But maybe let's take a look, folks, at what is good and not so good about this, that we as a country are so bad at prevention right now or treating addiction that we have to have this where I can now run to Fry, CVS, Walmart and pick this up so I can have it in my house so I can hopefully reverse somebody who may be overdosing. Another unintended consequence that always comes along with these things, maybe people will continue to use more now or increase their usage or the amount that they're using because they know they've got a fallback, right, that could bring them back to life. So it is a known fact that drug dealers who have like the highest level of whatever fentanyl or things, strongest drug, heroin, whatever it is, people will flock to that because they want to get a better high. So what's the disincentive now for these folks to push the limit on maybe the mixtures that they're creating when they're stepping on these? Stepping on meaning like you're mixing the drugs together to create a better high. They're probably going to push the limits because it's like, well, hey, what the hell? Don't really care. I can just go. Maybe you can get a subscription on Amazon for this Narcan now. I don't know. But everybody is just celebrating this to no end, and I'm just going, okay, got it. But let's take one step back and look at this from a little wide-angle lens here. I don't think it's a good sign of where our country's at right now. So just frustrating. So, well, there you go. That's Narcan for you. While we're on the trend of hot topics, I want to talk a little bit about weed today. Cannabis, marijuana, Mary Jane, the reefer. Okay, I was a 20-year consumer, daily consumer of marijuana. I like to call it weed. The media likes to call it cannabis. And there is an intentional campaign that is deliberate. It was put together by lobbying, by big financial interests to change the language away from weed and marijuana. So much so that using the term marijuana, and this is true, Google it, check it out all you want, marijuana is now a racist term. You know, adding to the list of what's racist, and I don't know what page on that list we're at of 10,782 of things that are now racist, marijuana is now a racist term. So, okay, great. We have taken the word marijuana and weed and we've turned it into cannabis. It has been intentional, deliberate. It is a certain political spectrum. We'll just call it folks that are a little bit farther on the left side of the spectrum have taken this and made it into a different drug than what it is. And they've done honestly, they have done a tremendous job of marketing this thing and rebranding the same drug that has been on the market forever and ever and ever. And kudos to the marketing execs that put this campaign together that made cannabis the new drug, not marijuana and not weed. And you almost exclusively hear the word cannabis used in the industry now. So what do I want to talk about in terms of weed today? So yes, you've probably heard it's not the same drug that I used to smoke, my parents or in their friends in the generation in the 50s, 60s, 70s smoked. It's not. There's more potent, there's more strange, it's grown differently. It's very, very different. There's also different ways, right? And I don't need to spend too much time on this because you can vape it, there's shatter, there's dabs, there's wax. There is a multitude of ways where you can now ingest this. Edibles, let's not leave out edibles as well too, that are significantly stronger and have a much greater intensity than what used to be just sitting on a couch, smoking a joint, hitting a bong, hitting your pipe, whatever that is. We're talking about a new type of drug here, right? It almost should be labeled as a new type of drug. It is not that I am so anti-marijuana. When I was not in active recovery, it was probably my favorite thing, right? Again, a daily user for 20 years and not like, I wait till 9 o'clock and hit a little bit. This was wake up in the morning, use during the day, use in the afternoon, use at night till we go to sleep. This was me as a marijuana addict. Let me repeat that. You can be addicted to marijuana. It's complete BS if anyone tells you that you are not or cannot be addicted to marijuana. If you are someone who are using marijuana on a regular basis, right, stop using it. Let's see what happens. Irritability, number one. It is going to tick you off. Your appetite's going to change, right? Dramatically. Sleep patterns going to change, right? Your memory will become more clear over time. Doesn't happen very quickly. All of these things start to change once you introduce marijuana into your life. In the earlier age that you introduce this to, the more ingrained it becomes. I started using marijuana at 15, 16 years old. I think I told the story of kind of my first use at the Hotel Del in Coronado on a student government retreat when I was a freshman in high school. And how it immediately resonated with me and how I immediately sought that out. It doesn't work that way for everyone. I was predisposed to addiction through things that I wasn't even aware of in my genetics, my history, my just who I was. So when that light switch got flicked, right, I'm one of those where it just stayed on. Some people can turn that switch back off. Marijuana, though, is just one of these things where you just don't know. And now, with how it is, with edibles, with the vaping, with the being able to conceal it so easily, I talk to high school kids around the valley here on a regular basis. Not formally, just an informal conversation, like, tell me what's going on. And they're like, bathrooms, vaping, right? And they're like, Steve, it's not just weed anymore. It's not just THC anymore. And I'm like, oh boy. So there is there is an increased use. There's an increased kind of attitude of it's okay. It's not that bad for you. I'd rather my kids smoke a joint than, smoke cigarettes. You hear that. We have parents that are now using on a regular basis and feel bad coming down on their son or daughter who may be using marijuana as well too. Then you layer in this thing that we did as a country, and we did this here in the state of Arizona too, which is it frustrates me, to put it mildly. We introduced marijuana as medicine. Okay, all right. I actually think that there may be some medical benefit here. It's a Schedule I drug, so that poses some challenges there from the federal government, the state, and all of those things. But okay, there probably is some type of medical benefit there. I can get on board with that. Then we take our medicine, doing air quotes, great pod as always, and then we vote on it to become legal. Another great marketing thing that they did here: adult use. Right? Adult use. I love adult use, right? So it went from illegal to medical to adult use. They are controlling the language so tightly around marijuana so that it doesn't kind of cast and give those same vibes or whatever it is that it has done so often in the past. It's really trying to create this same drug into an entirely new category and brand it and market it differently. It's a world-class effort in marketing. But how can we have something that was medicine now be adult use / recreational? So why are we stopping with weed? Let's keep going. I mean, there's some other stuff that's out there. I mean, anybody like Percocet, right? That's a fun one. Like, it's medical, right? I don't know. It's kind of like it. Let's put it to a vote, everybody. Right? That's what happened here in the state of Arizona. Let's put it to a vote. Boom. There you go. Now you can go buy it at a pill store. I don't even know what they'd call it, dispensaries. But it's just ridiculous is what I'm getting at here. And again, it's not the worst thing in the world. It wasn't the devil when kind of Reefer Madness hit. It's not a miracle drug over here on the other side of the spectrum with no side effects to it whatsoever. There are correlations we're seeing to some schizophrenia. I'm not saying that those are definitely connected, but go ahead and read up on Alex Berenson. He's done some really interesting research. Alex did kind of do a deep dive on some COVID stuff that I think threw people off a little bit. But if you go back and look at some of his research on marijuana and the ties to schizophrenia and some of these other things, I'm not saying it's a direct line, but there is more and more data coming out. And as you continue to look at what's gone on in Colorado and kind of see some of the statistics that are coming out there, please take a minute and Google that on your own time. I'm not here on a podcast to just hammer you with statistics, but it's not all safe, glamorous, and no harm, no foul, live and let live. There is an impact that's happening to the youth in our country with the, again, shifting attitudes around marijuana, and I just don't think that's good. I don't think that there is, let me just back up for a second. Obviously, we have some mental health issues with the youth in our country right now. I'm not going to get into some of the most recent things that are happening, nor am I going to tie that to marijuana use. But using this drug is not going to help anyone, especially if you're starting to use in your teens, right? If you want to get to 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and you want to pick up smoking a little bit, hitting it, vape, edible, whatever it is, if you want to do that, you're an adult, go crazy. It's legal. I have real issue because the average age of first use, 7th grade, folks, 7th grade. Here's another little number for you. By the time your parents find out, it's about 12 to 18 months on average is when they find out when your first use was. So more than enough time to become addicted to a substance. And again, I can't say it's enough. You can be addicted to marijuana. I worked in a treatment center, high-end treatment center here in Scottsdale, Arizona. People walked in the door addicted to marijuana, not addicted to everything else, just addicted to marijuana. Don't kid yourself that this thing can't impact your life. And if you start using as a teenager, the impact on your brain is even greater, right? that kind of learning that's happening while your brain is developing, those things get halted, if not slowed down or halted. It impacts you maturity-wise. I mean, I can speak to myself for that. There's a lot of behavior that I've seen as I've kind of matured over the years, and I'm like, gosh, that is kind of like 16-year-old thinking. And I look back and go, well, what were we doing at 16 that maybe potentially stunted some of my development? I was getting high every day, right? I was getting high every day. So if you want to use, and it's legal, more power to you. But let's help try and win this year and just help your kids. Let's get them out to college. If we can get them out of college, even better. Let them become adults. Let the maturity of the brain, the crystallization happen. And now if you want to start smoking, toking, doing whatever you want to do, go crazy. The point of all of this is that it is not harmless. It is not the devil. It's not the worst thing in the world. But we need to start saying what it is. And it's not without consequences. There are no free lunches in nature, right? Marijuana will have an impact on you, from short-term memory to motivation to eating habits to all these types of things. Again, not the worst thing in the world, but not something that we should be glamorizing to the extent as well, too. And no, I don't want my kids to be using this as well, too. If, again, they want to get into their 20s and go for it, go for it. It's just been on my mind a little bit lately because pot has become a culture. I get it. We've become just so accepting of everything that somebody's got to push back a little bit and say, okay, I get it. It's not the safest thing in the world. So let's push this thing off till we're adults here a little bit. And then, you can try your edibles before bed or when you go on a ski trip or something like that in Colorado. All right? I've had enough conversations with folks and parents and adults who are doing this. And by the way, if you're an adult who's using, weed, pot, marijuana, whatever the heck you want to call it, it's okay to still have a conversation with your son or daughter and go, hey, I don't want you to do that, right? It's okay. Well, haven't you tried? Hey, we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. I'm your dad. I'm your mom. This is a boundary. This is a rule that's in our house, and it's not okay for you to participate in this behavior. You don't have to give them your whole backstory on everything. Cat's out of the bag on mine a little bit. If old Morgan, who's here in the studio with me, probably heard this podcast today. But I'll be able to address that in about 13 years or so. I'm just saying, I know a lot of parents are using this now. You don't, just because you may be hitting it a little bit before bedtime on the ski trip down in Cabo, whatever it is that you're doing, right, doesn't mean that you're not allowed to draw a fine line and say, in this house, this is unacceptable behavior until you're of age and out of the house. So, okay. Wanted to hit a little bit of that. I just get sick and tired of the whole world being so pro-pot and saying that it's, harmless, can't do anything to you. I feel like we needed a little voice on the other side just saying, hey, I'd rather my kids not doing it. And there can be consequences. Okay, good stuff. Hope somebody took a little bit of value out of that. This is the point in the show where I like to try and transition over to the other side. Had some great feedback, questions come in. And actually, the question I'm going to take today is probably the most common question I get asked in all of addiction, behavioral health, to me at least, right? And the question is, how do I know if I'm an alcoholic, right? Good. It's a good, solid question. Usually people are asking, they'll kind of guise it under, I have a friend I'm concerned about. Most of the time it's for that person, right? I know that, and I don't put them on the spot, and I don't judge, right? At least you're kind of thinking about your drinking behavior. Lots of thoughts, as usual, on this topic. So first off, if you're asking that question, that means you've thought about your drinking. If you're thinking about your drinking, there's probably something going on there in general, right? You may not have crossed that alcoholic threshold per se, but it'd be worth examining in more detail. It's good that you're thinking about your drinking. It's such a normal thing, and it's so glamorized in all of our culture nowadays that I get it. But the most typical answer I give, just to answer the own question that I was posed, is, again, am I an alcoholic? How do I know? How many drinks? That kind of stuff people are always asking. And I'm like, look, in my opinion, it has very little to do with the number of drinks. Pause. If you're drinking a handle of vodka every night, you're going through 6 bottles of wine every night, Okay, yeah, you're probably an alcoholic, and I'm just going to go off that on a quantity basis. But that's not actually how I answer this question. Drinking in spite of consequences, right? If you continue to drink and your world is starting to have consequences associated, and it doesn't just have to be a DUI. It can be stress with the wife. It can be late to work. It can be not showing up to your kids' games on the weekend. It could be maybe you said something a little inappropriate at the holiday party. It could be a number of things. If there are things that are happening and you can look at it and go, I was kind of drunk, or I had a couple too many there, probably could have not said that. And that's light, right? I'm just going on the light side of things. Obviously, if you're racking up DUIs and domestic violence stuff, I mean, yeah, you got serious problems. But most people don't kind of get there until it's really progressed to a place that it's fairly easily identifiable, at least in terms of alcoholism. And I like to call it an alcoholic, not alcohol use disorder. As I've spoken about in some of these other podcasts, I'm sick of sugarcoating what this is, that you're an alcoholic, you're a drunk, you've got a problem with alcohol, it needs to be worked on. So let's enough with this kind of softening of the language around this. So drinking in spite of consequences, if your world's starting to crumble and you just don't want to look at alcohol as a contributing factor to this, you continue to drink away, right? You've racked up a couple DUIs, your wife has left, you're not showing up to your kid's game, work's declining. Those are all areas where I look at and go, if things are starting to go south, it's a good time to pause, take a look at how much you're drinking, right? Good time to pause. Now, it's an interesting thing I've seen with a lot of men is, I like to have a couple scotches, a couple bourbons, at night, come home, take the edge off kind of thing. I make a couple $100,000 a year, providing wife. We go to Hawaii for a month, and we go to Pacific Beach for a couple weeks. Like they'll rattle off, right? This whole thing of things that they do, that they provide, that they think justifies their problem drinking or alcoholic style of drinking. And I listen without judgment. But if you're coming to me asking these questions, right, something's on your mind, something's going on, and I'm probably not getting the full story every time someone's kind of asking me about these things as well too. So if you're telling me that it's a handful of drinks or this many nights, it's probably a little bit more than that as well too. But what I have found in men specifically is that they'll use the success, typically monetary, as a justification, rationalization for them to allow themselves to continue to drink, right? It's just something that I've noticed, that I've pointed out, because it happens all the time. They're talking, but Steve, I got it. Cool, that's great. I'd love to have all of those things too, but if your kids don't want to be around you, you don't have that many friends, you stay in and kind of maybe you hide a few how many drinks that you're having and don't really tell people, or if you're hiding booze or something like that. The job for guys, and I'm just speaking to guys because I have this conversation all the time. I'm sure I can speak to some other women stuff, but I just know this one crystal clear, is the job is usually the last thing to go, right? So it's I'll do everything I can, but I'm going to hold on to that job for dear life to make sure that I can kind of rationalize, justify my drinking habits because I provide. I have this in the bank account, I have that, and things, and material things and things like that. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing that I wanted to highlight to some of the gentlemen out there that may be listening. It's look, I get it. You do well. Doesn't mean you can't do well and be an alcoholic. And a question I always kick around in my head, and I don't know the answer, is it better to have nothing and be an alcoholic and get help, or to have many financial means and be an alcoholic and get help? And which one's harder? And just because I've seen that with folks walking in the door at the treatment center. And I think my answer is, if you have financial means and things like that, you're able to kind of push out that bottom. I don't like to just go around throwing around rock bottom. I think it's overused, but you're able to kind of push that out a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther, which kind of enables, oftentimes the addiction or the drinking to go a little farther and unchecked. So, that's a little bit on the guy side of things. But, okay, so maybe I do think I have a problem with drinking. All right, Steve. All right, you got me. Got you there. Not out to get you, but if you're asking me that question, there's probably something in your mind that's telling you something you already know. what to do now, right? Where do you go, what to do, who to talk to. You're more than welcome to shoot me an email, shoot me a question. I'm happy to talk about it. You can post it on Instagram if you feel comfortable or whatever it is. This is what I do all day, every day, is just kind of helping people as much as I can. And I don't have all the answers, but I can at least point you in the right direction. So you think that you have a drinking problem. Typically what happens is you're going to look for the easiest way, the easiest landing spot, right? So maybe I'll first try just beer. I've heard that all the damn time. Doesn't work. Okay, so let's go through the list. We're going to cross out the just beer, the just wine thing. Like, none of that crap works, right? We've heard it. You think you're unique. You think you're different. You're not. You're the same as the rest of us. Moving on, right? Okay, well, I'll just stop cold turkey then, right? That's probably next on the list. My wife's threatening divorce, right? She doesn't want me around the kids. She wants me to move out of the house. I'm just going to stop cold turkey. I'm just going to do it. Okay, right? I've seen that work temporarily, right? Temporarily. And you can do that, and it's kind of that immediate stopgap that can help people, right? And maybe it can help save a marriage temporarily. But if we're just putting a plug in the jug for a few minutes, ultimately we're going to have to get to a place where you're meeting with somebody, going to a 12-step, going to an outpatient, going to therapy, going to treatment or somewhere to kind of process this. Because now, if I'm just not drinking, but I really want to drink, you're not going to be a very fun person to be around. You're going to be a miserable SOB because all you're thinking about is, I just want to be able to do this and I can't. You're on edge, anxiety's up. That's going to come through in all your relationships, interactions. So, that's just not going to cut it as a long-term solution. And by the way, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be a miserable, kind of angry, white knuckle type of person walking around on edge. And that's no way to go through life. By the way, tons of people do this, right? Tons of people do this. They don't want to go to 12-step. They don't want to do some of the other options that require more work, are more intensive and harder, candidly harder, right? And the other options that I'm going to get to here in a second require abstinence, right? Imagine that, not drinking, but also creating a new, healthier way to live. So, okay, we're not just going to limit it. We're not just going to stop on our own. So where does that land us next? First and foremost, there are two things that can kill you while detoxing. And I am not exaggerating when I say can kill you. If you are taking benzodiazepines, Xanax, that is what a Xanax is. And if you are drinking heavily on a regular basis, you need supervised medical detox. If you just stop on your own, that can kill you. I'm just going to let that resonate into the mic here for a second. Xanax, benzodiazepines, and alcohol. If you are taking those heavily and you stop on your own, that can kill you. People think it's heroin. People think it's cocaine, all these other drugs. Nope. Let me tell you, miserable detoxes on the heroin and, some of the stuff. I mean, miserable people. This is the throwing up stuff that you see, just really just the worst of the worst. What you see in movies, kind of detox type stuff. But the two can tell you, Xanax, alcohol. So, medically supervised detox. Let me also say this. You can go to detox, and it doesn't mean you have to go to treatment. Depending on the severity of the case, the situation around this, I'd love to see people kind of transition at least into an outpatient setting or inpatient residential if it requires it, and oftentimes it does, especially if you're reaching out to me and the people that kind of land in my sphere. But you can go to a medically supervised detox facility. By the way, it's not that bad, right? I'm just here to tell you, I've spent a couple days in these bad boys before, right? And I didn't even get to go to the nice ones. I went to the ones where like the no slip socks and like a hospital with, there's nothing you could tie your shoelaces around to hang you. I mean, I went to the rough stuff. You can go check in. There's about a mile from where I sit right here in Scottsdale, a detox facility where you get a nice room by yourself, TV. Maybe you go in while there's a golf tournament going on. They're going to give you some Ativan, some things to help you sleep. They're going to monitor your blood pressure. They're going to help you stay comfortable while we're detoxing you through this kind of intense period so that we can safely get you off Xanax or alcohol. I'm talking primarily about alcohol today, but I just want to make sure that people do know that the Xanax part of this thing can kill you as well too. So that can take anywhere from 2-3 days to 4, 5, 6, maybe longer, depending on the level of use that you had walking into the door. If you were drunk when you got there, it might be a little bit longer than if maybe you're just starting this thing out. But just know that there's safe ways to do that, and it can be comfortable. I mean, I'm not here running an ad for them, but it's a good way to do it, that if you're coming off this. What I like about the medically supervised detox is it gets you a couple days away from your last use, right? And those first couple days are just terrible. And I mean terrible. I mean, it's gut-wrenching, sick, you sleep, nauseous, head, anxiety, through the roof, all that stuff. So not doing that on your couch where you are risking your health and safety, doing it in a place where they're monitoring your blood pressure, giving you meds, and doing all that stuff. Now you're 3, 4, 5 days away. You've gotten through the really, really difficult part. Now you can start to assess and start to come up with a plan. Again, depending on the level of use, I'd like to see people get right into a treatment center, an inpatient treatment center. And there are all kinds of treatment centers out there in the world. But if your life is in shambles, and yes, I've heard it, you've got kids, you've got jobs. I've heard absolutely every single thing someone could say about why they can't go to a treatment center. Is your life worth it? Is your future worth it? All those things that you think you're concerned about right now will go away, and they will go away very quickly if you don't take care of what needs to be taken care of. If it's work-related, there's FMLA that can give you cover for basically, going away, and people won't even know why you went away, right? They won't even know, and they're not legally allowed to ask, right? So you can have cover for doing this and helping yourself get better. If for whatever reason that's not available, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of online treatment programs that are available. I am a big fan of at least an outpatient session, which is where you're going usually 2 to 3 times per week, 2 to 3 hours per session, where you're meeting with a therapist one-on-one, and then you're meeting in small group to kind of discuss, what's going on with your addiction and where you're at, and hearing others as well too. I just think that needs to be said. It's scary. People don't know what to do. I get calls, Steve, I've got a problem. Where do I go? How do I do this? And then I'll share very similar to what I've just shared with you here today. And they'll go, can't do this for X, Y, Z reasons and other things. At a certain point, you just have to do it, right? You just have to do it. But there are ways that you can do this that I'm not saying you have to be comfortable, but that can help you kind of get through these really intense parts. So the original question was, how do I tell if I'm an alcoholic, right? I went off a little bit on, what to do if you've kind of gotten there, because, it's usually the person knows if their drinking is a problem, right? They have an idea. I mean, you really do. If you're being honest with yourself, you're drinking more than people, you're staying up later, you're having that, you're hitting the bar at 6 a.m. Everything's a pregame, everything's an after party. You got a lot of booze around the house. It's easy to tell if you're the one hiding booze around the house and stuff like that. I mean, that's a problem. Normal people don't do that. If you're thinking about alcohol all the time, I mean, that's just, that's kind of 101 on being an alcoholic and things like that. So, but I did just like to kind of paint the picture of, okay, I have a problem. What now, Steve? Right? I just go online and show up at an AA meeting. That can work too, right? You may want to find someone who's maybe been in there. I walked in the door as a 19-year-old to my very first AA meeting. I was kind of a tough guy. No, I wasn't. I had to have my mom come with me. All right? Does that tell you how tough I was at the time that I went to the AA meeting? I was like, my mom come with me? Yeah, pretty tough. But you know what? It helped me get better. I'm going to close on this note. Take some action, whatever it is. If you think you have a problem, talk to a friend, talk to a person in long-term recovery, reach out to a counselor, right? Don't go running for a shrink to prescribe you some Xanax because your anxiety's running high. I could do a whole episode on just these shrinks that provide the Xanax to now people who already have drinking problems and they're putting their life at risk. Please don't do that. My God, report any of these people if they are doing that too. That's a combination to just, you drink too much, take a couple Xanax, and you never wake up. As slow as you're breathing to a point, you're gone. Bye. Goodbye. So but take some action. Get with somebody who's in long-term recovery. I mean, everybody knows somebody who stopped drinking for one reason or another, even if it's not AA. Look to one of these outpatient programs. Go do a detox. Get yourself some help. You know, things are out there that can help you get through these things, and your life is going to be much better in a few weeks from when you take action now. Okay, well, I hope somebody out there got a little value out of what we talked about today. We hit the weed, the Narcan, and some alcohol, kind of the trifecta of really what's out there in behavioral health right now. If you can, please like, share, subscribe, review, tell a friend. Costs you nothing, helps us a ton as we start to build out a little bit of an audience here. Thank you so much. I am Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.